want to say this. First and foremost, there's no shame, no embarrassment in getting packed out, getting beat up. As long as you fight, you're respected. Now, did King fight? We don't know. I'm going to tell you my personal opinion about T.I.'s son, King.
Like, I don't have no gang. I ain't in no gang. I got family. I got motherfuckers who willing to risk their lives and freedom to die by me and mine. You hear me? Why don't f***ing play with me, man? Don't play with my motherfucking child, ever.
You never really know what you're built for until the doors slam shut. And for King Harris, that moment came fast and unforgiving. He spent years online telling the world he was standing on business, talking loud, flexing confidence, and moving like pressure didn't scare him at all. But the second those jail doors closed, that bold energy evaporated almost instantly, and the reality hit harder than any comment section ever could. Behind cold concrete walls and steel bars, the so-called Prince of Trap learned a lesson that can't be filtered or edited. Fame don't matter in there. Money don't matter.
You already know that when you come to jail, everybody jealous of what you done had in your life. That's just part of the culture. Like, I wish I would have had.
What you want to do? What you want to do? You from here?
Yeah, I'm from here. Yeah, I'm from here.
All right, so.
Oh, hell yeah, let's go.
What's up with you, bro? What's up with you, bro?
Let's go.
Putting your hand around me, talking out your ass like you want to do something. What's up, bro?
I don't know.
What's up, bro?
Nothing.
What? Relax, or what?
Nothing.
Or what? Or what?
Nothing.
Or what? Because you just tried me like a police.
This could be a game.
Keep out your business, my nigga. Keep out your business, my nigga.
I think he wants you to peel.
And a famous last name definitely doesn't carry weight when respect has to be earned face to face, according to someone with real pull inside those walls. Once the cameras were gone, King wasn't moving like the image he sold online. And that revelation cracked everything wide open. Now here's where it gets even darker. A well-known Atlanta gang figure finally broke silence and put the whole situation on blast, exposing what really happened behind bars. And what he described wasn't just uncomfortable, it was humiliating. The kind of humiliation that spreads fast through a unit, the kind inmates don't forget, and the kind that sticks to your name long after you leave. Behind the scenes, King's legal team has reportedly been scrambling hard, pushing for early release options, floating transfer requests, and calling in every favor they can reach. Whispers say certain connections might be quietly trying to pull strings, hoping for a smooth exit nobody notices.
You know I stand on business. Why you even letting somebody play with me like that? Why you letting somebody play with me like that?
Why? No, King changed for other reasons and he ain't got good sense. You see what I'm saying?
Is that nigga not give us a question?
Everybody know King ain't got, you know what I'm saying, he ain't got all his marbles.
I'm the only one on here who got bad-ass kids.
We all go through
You
it.
feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you ain't got no bad-ass kids, you got one and you got lucky. You hear me? Anybody with 3 or more,
Multiples.
you got one that you don't know what the hell you gonna do with.
Whether that's a real shot at freedom or just desperation talking, one thing is obvious. King Harris wants out of that cell, and he wants out bad. Because once the doors locked and the unit settled, nothing from the outside could save him. The flashy cars, the viral bravado, the family legacy, none of it meant a thing in there. Nobody cared who his father was. Nobody cared what image he built online. According to that gang figure, the tough talk disappeared instantly, replaced by nerves and hesitation. The truth came out raw. King wasn't built for that life, and the block could smell it immediately. He had glorified the streets from a distance, but when it came time to stand on it for real, fear crept in fast. And fear inside a jail spreads quick, like wildfire. This wasn't just another celebrity kid messing up.
And he told me that it was okay. That's the only time. Inside any other time, I don't even call the police like for accidents. It ain't even no 911 call with my voice on it. I don't break in my house.
This was a brutal, unfiltered look at what happens when privilege collides with prison politics. That whole standing on business image collapsed overnight. And instead of respect, King's name started circulating with laughter and side-eye in the yard. According to insiders, one gang figure made an example out of him publicly, not quietly, but openly, in front of inmates, guards, and people who once thought King was really about that life. It wasn't random either. It was cold, calculated, and personal. The pod hasn't stopped talking about it since. But to understand how it all spiraled this far, you have to rewind to where the downfall actually started. That infamous traffic stop that set everything in motion.
I'm so puzzled why King feels the desire, need, want to be considered a street dude that badly. Like, why is he so obsessed with the struggle, with the life of being a street dude? Like, street dudes ain't really winning.
You wanted to go over there. You cried and cried and cried when you couldn't go over there.
We done got big house, big yard, nothing to do.
But you want to be from the ghetto so bad.
On the surface, it looked minor. Just another flashy kid in a BMW making an illegal turn. Nothing serious. Something that usually ends with a warning or a ticket. But within seconds, the tone shifted completely. Police ran his name, and suddenly the situation turned heavy. There was a warrant. There were weapons. And just like that, the son of Atlanta royalty was face down on the pavement, cuffed, surrounded by flashing blue lights. The smell of weed hung thick in the air, and the tension was undeniable.
No motherfucking way. They got the wrong man, wrong guy. What the fuck is that? They got drones flying and shit.
This was the same King Harris who flexed online about never backing down, now being told to keep his hands still and follow orders, no questions asked. And that's when the fantasy shattered. This wasn't social media. This wasn't a music video. This was real life crashing in without mercy. Here's the part that surprised people though. King didn't explode. He didn't scream. He didn't curse anyone out. Officers later admitted he stayed calm, almost polite. But calm doesn't erase consequences. That moment marked the start of everything unraveling fast.
I can't judge how the parenting is gone, because everything that we've seen has been stuff that many of us would have said or similar if we saw our children do this. But I will say this. A lot of what's happening is because it's in the public. Like most children don't have to.
He held it together while the cameras were on him. But what came next separated performance from survival? Because staying calm in front of police is one thing, surviving behind locked doors is a whole different pressure. Once those cell doors clanged shut, whispers moved through the block like static. The same guy who barked tough online suddenly looked out of place in real time. According to insiders, the so-called trap prince wasn't moving like a soldier at all. He looked shaken, unsure, uncomfortable. And when the power dynamics flipped, that gang leader's words sliced straight through the fake image. Even outside, people started noticing the shift. Commentators who usually defend young rappers stopped capping and started asking real questions.
Yes, sir.
There's one in the head.
Does your buddy have one as well? Alright, just hang tight right here for me. Let me clear this. I don't want any accidental fires.
There's no safety, you gotta take.
No safety.
DJ Acanix, known for keeping it blunt, questioned why someone raised with wealth, protection, and opportunity would be so obsessed with proving he was street. To a lot of people, it just didn't add up. This is someone born into luxury, private drivers, doors opening on demand, yet still desperate to belong to a lifestyle most people are trying their entire lives to escape. That contrast had people shaking their heads. It wasn't rebellion anymore. It looked like confusion wrapped in ego. King Harris had access to everything money could unlock, yet chased the one door that slammed shut the hardest, a prison cell. And once the tough guy's shell started cracking publicly, it became impossible to ignore. The warning signs were already there, especially that heated confrontation with his own father. Cameras caught what looked like a family argument, but underneath it was raw insecurity dressed up as defiance. King kept repeating standing on business, trying to sound like the person he wanted the world to believe he was. But to millions watching, it didn't look powerful at all. It looked like a young man fighting his father's shadow, desperate to be feared instead of guided. And that's exactly why the gang leader's words hit so deep inside those walls. No cameras, no PR spin, no live streams. just survival. According to insiders, when King stepped onto that cold block, his last name didn't protect him at all. It made him a target. His last name carried weight, sure, but his own name didn't carry respect at all. Inside that pod, whispers started spreading fast. People clocked the hesitation, the forced bravado, the nervous glances that told the real story louder than any tough talk ever could. Then came the account from an Atlanta street figure with zero loyalty to the Harris name. No bias, no sugarcoating, no reason to protect the image. What he described was detailed, humiliating, and raw enough to shake the entire facility. Allegedly, King folded under real pressure, breaking down the moment consequences stopped being theoretical and became real. That image hurt. That story didn't stay behind bars for long. It spilled straight into Atlanta. The streets laughed, blogs went wild, and suddenly that crash-out attitude didn't look like courage anymore. It looked like a costume that couldn't survive behind steel doors. And when that gang leader dropped his final words, they landed cold and razor-sharp. The entire illusion collapsed instantly. The myth of King Harris, the fearless street kid who stood on business, evaporated on the spot. What followed wasn't just gossip, it was exposure. And now King Harris is walking a razor's edge between public embarrassment and real danger inside those walls. Here's what most people don't understand about jail politics at all. Respect is never given, it's taken. None of that outside shine matters in there. Bank accounts don't matter. Designer chains don't matter. Follower counts don't matter. Your parents definitely don't matter inside those cold, fluorescent lit cells. There's only one currency, and that currency is respect. The second those doors slam shut, all that matters is how you carry yourself when nobody's there to protect your image. And that's exactly where King Harris stumbled hard. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely according to people close to intake. The same kid who strutted online acting untouchable suddenly looked lost. No entourage, no cameras, no jewelry. Just a scared young man realizing his father's fame couldn't buy him a single ounce of credibility in a place built on survival. The swagger vanished fast, replaced by a harsh dose of reality. The contrast was painful to watch. This was the same king who branded himself as fearless and unstoppable. A young man born into access, opportunity, and protection. But that whole image cracked the moment the real world closed in. Even his own mother accidentally exposed the truth with a simple comment that hit harder than any diss track ever could. It wasn't hate, it was honesty. Mother seeing through the act and saying what everyone else already knew. That small moment told the world everything behind the loud words. Her son was still searching for who he really was. Then came the frustration. Father watching his son crash into the exact world he warned him about, asking not in anger but disbelief why his son wanted to be from the streets so badly when he already had a lane. And that's the wild part. King wasn't born in the trenches. He chased them. He wanted that street stamp so badly he tried to manufacture it. But here's the brutal truth. Real street dudes can smell pretense from a mile away. They know who's there because they had no choice, and who's there because they thought it looked cool. And when you fall into that second category, you become the easiest target in the room. That's why when the gang leader finally spoke up, people listened. He wasn't just clowning King, he was confirming what the culture already suspected. The stand-on-business persona collapses when there's no camera rolling. Nobody's impressed by internet talk. But this story cuts deeper than just King Harris. It exposes a contradiction that's been brewing for years. For a long time, his father branded himself as reformed, preaching growth, accountability, and leaving street traps behind. Yet here was his own son sprinting headfirst into the same chaos with a smugness that almost mocked everything his father stood for. The world watched a father and son screaming on live video. King yelling, "Why are you letting somebody play with me like that?" While his father stood there exhausted, not angry, just drained. It wasn't power, it wasn't respect, it was chaos. Caught on camera, it became entertainment for the internet, an embarrassment for the family, and it was a warning sign of what came next. In jail, there's always someone ready to test you, someone waiting to see if your talk matches your walk. So when that gang leader later exposed how King allegedly reacted to those first tests behind bars, the internet went nuclear. Not because it shocked people, but because it confirmed what many already believed. The stand-on business warrior wasn't built for the life he romanticized. But before diving deeper into that humiliation, there's another layer to this downfall. The system that fed it. Platforms and bloggers didn't just report King's behavior, they amplified it. Chaos became currency. Commentary channels turned petty arrests into sagas, half mockery, half encouragement. Jokes about what King would need to do to be seen as real sounded like humor, but to someone young and insecure, that noise became validation. Every laugh, every repost, every viral clip fed the delusion. Each doubt made him bark louder, puffed his chest harder, and doubled down on the act. But once those cell doors clanked shut and the cameras disappeared, all that energy vanished instantly. The talk stopped, the confidence dissolved. And suddenly, the same King Harris who demanded respect online couldn't even hold eye contact inside. Because in that world, nobody cares about your followers. They only care about your fear. And that's why the gang leader S words hit like a dagger straight to the chest. They didn't just call King out. They peeled back the very last layer of the image he worked so hard to sell, the illusion he'd been hiding behind for years. According to that source, King wasn't feared at all. He wasn't respected either. He was scared. And inside the cutthroat ecosystem of jail, fear isn't just weakness, it's blood in the water. Once other inmates sense it, the hunt starts immediately. And that's the part nobody really wants to talk about. Psychological damage of that kind of exposure. Imagine spending years convincing the world you're a lion, only to freeze the second you step into the real jungle. It doesn't just bruise your ego, it erases your credibility completely. And for King Harris, credibility was the only currency he had left. Without it, everything he built online crumbled into dust overnight. But this was only the beginning, the calm before the detonation. The next phase of this story takes everything that had been simmering, the traffic stop, the family tension, the viral bravado, and slams it straight into the brutal reality of what allegedly went down behind bars. Here's the thing about jail. Gossip moves faster than contraband. One whispered story during intake can turn into a full-blown legend before lunchtime. And when that gang leader finally decided to speak, he didn't toss out slick comments or vague hints. He painted a picture so vivid and cutting that even King's loudest defenders went silent almost instantly. Word spread through the block like wildfire. Inmates repeated every detail, adding their own twists, until the same story started echoing on the streets outside. That's how fragile the image really was. One crack was all it took for the entire myth to collapse. But to understand how it all fell apart, you have to rewind. According to insiders, when King first entered custody, he didn't walk in humble at all. Walked in chest out, chin high, wearing his last name like armor. The same energy that got him clicks in cloud online. At first, people watched quietly, curious, but cautious. After all, this was his son. Some assumed special treatment might be coming. Others thought he'd try to prove himself immediately. But according to one source, the moment King realized nobody cared who his father was, the shift was instant. You could see it on his face. Confidence draining, nerves kicking in, and the entire room picking up on it at the same time. That flip from arrogance to anxiety changed everything. So when the gang leader finally told his story, the timing couldn't have been worse for King. The walls were already closing in, and one man's account turned quiet embarrassment into a full public execution of ego. That's when the illusion officially shattered. King Harris's name went from royalty to ridicule almost overnight. And according to the gang leader who witnessed it firsthand, the confidence didn't even survive the first real test. He said King was challenged almost immediately. No build-up, no warning, just raw reality. A shoulder bump in the hallway, shoved to see what he was made of. In came the cold words every inmate dreads hearing, "You stand on business, right? Let's see it then." And that's where everything fell apart. Instead of standing tall or pushing back, the gang leader said King froze, just for a second. But in jail, that single heartbeat of hesitation is all it takes. Fear spreads through a pod faster than smoke. The same guy who shouted, "I stand on business" online, suddenly looked like he wanted out of that business completely. The irony is brutal. On the outside, King had no problem yelling at his father, clashing on live, and demanding respect from the world. But on the inside, when that same energy was required for real, it wasn't there at all. Here's where the gang leader's account turns ruthless. He didn't just say King froze. He said King allegedly tried to talk his way out of it, dropping names, bringing up who his father was, reminding people of his status on the outside. Let that sink in. Inside jail, leaning on privilege is the fastest way to lose everything. You can't name drop your way into respect. That move alone sealed his fate. By the end of the first day, the story had spread everywhere. What started as a quick confrontation turned into a running joke by dinner. King Harris wasn't T.I.'s son anymore. He was the punchline. Inmates mocked him, copied his voice, replayed the moment he allegedly hesitated under pressure. The fearless trap prince image evaporated completely, replaced by laughter echoing through the halls. That's why the gang leader's revelation hit so hard. It wasn't about charges, paperwork, or commissary money. It was about heart. The one thing you can't buy, fake, or tweet into existence. And according to the man who saw it with his own eyes, King didn't have it when it mattered most. But this story doesn't stop at humiliation. Shame doesn't just hurt your pride, it paints a target on your back. Once that label sticks, there's always someone ready to test it again. The moment word spread that King Harris looked scared, everything changed. It's not always violence at first. Sometimes it's manipulation. Inside jail, fear becomes currency. People start scheming, pushing buttons, seeing how far they can go. Weakness isn't forgotten, it's exploited. If this sounds familiar, it's because we've seen this pattern before. Celebrity kids and young rappers trying to balance privilege and street validation, 9 times out of 10, it ends the same way. Exposure. The act gets revealed. The respect they chased turns into ridicule. Even DJ Akamic summed it up perfectly. The confusion people felt watching King try to prove himself is the same confusion the streets felt watching it all collapse. And in jail, confusion doesn't stay confusion for long. It turns into mockery fast. That ridicule didn't stay locked behind bars either. It leaked through whispered phone calls, quiet conversations, and that invisible pipeline connecting prison phones to podcasts, blogs, gossip pages, and the internet's nonstop rumor mill. By the time that gang leader finally spoke publicly, the streets were already buzzing. The story had traveled far beyond the cell block, and there was no pulling it back. King Harris ain't built like that became the narrative overnight. The fallout was instant and ruthless. Blogs grabbed it. Social media went crazy. Memes flooded timelines everywhere, and the image he worked so hard to build collapsed under the weight of one brutal reality check. Everywhere. Old clips of King yelling at his father, old videos of him boasting "I stand on business," all got flipped into instant punchlines. People slapped captions over those moments, mocking the alleged breakdown, turning his own words into weapons. The internet didn't just laugh, it feasted. That's the cruelest twist of all. The same slogan King used to build his image ended up destroying it. His words became the ammo. His catchphrase became the joke. The streets laughed, fans joked, and the silence from his inner circle only made the noise louder. No statements, no damage control, no pushback. Just silence, screaming even louder than the memes. But under all that chaos, a deeper question started circulating fast. Why did that gang leader expose him at all? Why break the so-called code just to humiliate a young man publicly? The answer is simple. Credibility. Calling out King Harris wasn't just about embarrassment, it was about status. By putting him on blast, that gang leader elevated his own name, reminding everyone watching that the streets don't bend for fame, money, or family ties behind those walls. There's no celebrity shield in there. You're no special treatment. Humiliating Tia's son wasn't personal. It was power. Real power. Being the one who checked the so-called Prince of Trap earned more respect than violence ever could in that environment. But when the camera flips back to King, that's where the story shifts from scandal to straight tragedy. Imagine being barely 20 years old, already carrying the weight of a famous last name, already desperate to prove your own man, and then having your lowest, most humiliating moment blasted to the world like entertainment. How do you recover from that? The truth is, you don't. It's not easily. Every move after that gets haunted by the moment. If King goes online and lashes out, people say it's overcompensation. If he drops music acting tough, the comments flood with jokes like, "Ain't this the same dude who froze?" Every post, every lyric, every appearance gets filtered through that humiliation. And here's the cruelest part of all. Even if King toughened up later, even if he handled himself differently next time, it wouldn't matter. People don't remember redemption. They remember the first crack, the first scandal, the first sign of weakness. That's what sticks. And for King Harris, that's the label he's fighting now. Not just inside those walls, but everywhere. Once the world laughs, it's almost impossible to make them take you seriously again. That's the brutal truth about reputation. Once it cracks, it rarely heals. For King, that first impression was devastating. The moment that gang leader spoke, his fate felt sealed. What made it worse was how perfectly the story lined up with everything people already believed. His father calling him out for wanting to be from the streets so badly, his mother pointing out his poor judgment, his emotional outbursts on live, screaming about respect while looking lost and overwhelmed. All of it rushed back at once. So when the gang leader described King allegedly freezing inside, it didn't sound shocking. It sounded like confirmation. That's why the streets accepted it instantly. It fit the image King himself had built. So where does that leave him now? Is King Harris stuck wearing the label of someone mocked inside and roasted outside? Or does he still have one last chance to flip the narrative and reclaim his name before it's too late? Because make no mistake, this fallout was catastrophic. What started as quiet cell block gossip turned into Atlanta street talk. Then the blogs caught wind. Then social media grabbed it and turned it into a full-blown circus. Memes everywhere, reaction videos everywhere. Clips of King yelling at his father got spliced with new captions mocking his alleged meltdown. Old moments where he shouted, "I stand on business," got remixed into TikToks with captions like "business closed early." The internet turned his own words into a permanent punchline. The most ruthless edit of all showed a split screen. One side, King yelling, "I stand on business." The other side, a laugh track saying, "But not in jail." Cold, surgical, relentless. And deep down, people had already doubted his toughness. For months, they questioned his identity, saying he was chasing a life that wasn't his. The gang leader's revelation just became the missing puzzle piece, the proof people felt they needed. But while the internet laughed, the Harris family felt the weight. The storm didn't just hit King, it hit everyone connected to him. T.I. suddenly found himself trapped in an impossible position. For years, he preached growth, responsibility, and avoiding the traps that destroy lives. Now he was watching his own son become the symbol of everything he warned against. The irony was painful. And who once praised his maturity started clowning him for failing at home. And to make it worse, private family tension had already been turned into public theater. Live arguments. Disrespect aired out for everyone to see. So when the gang leader's claims hit the streets, it didn't just make King look weak, it made T.I. look powerless. The world didn't see a father guiding his son anymore. They saw a legend losing control of his legacy. And that's what made the situation hit so hard. It stopped being just about a scared young man in a jail cell. It became a reflection of fame, family, and failure colliding all at once. When the cameras stopped rolling, the image of T.I. as the calm, disciplined patriarch took a serious hit. The world watched his son spiral publicly while the internet kept score. Here was a man who built an empire, mentored a generation, and preached accountability, yet couldn't stop his own bloodline from becoming a cautionary tale that cut deeper than any diss track ever could. Then Tiny's past comments resurfaced, like ghosts. Fans dug them up, clipped them next to the gang leader's brutal account, and turned them into viral proof that even his own mother saw the warning signs. What once sounded like a frustrated parent speaking truth suddenly became part of a public trial. This wasn't private family drama anymore, it became a full-blown cultural spectacle. But the most disturbing part of this fallout isn't the memes or the jokes, it's the danger. Because once the story spread that King looked scared, everything inside those prison walls shifted instantly. Every pod heard the rumor, every inmate knew the label. And once that label sticks in jail, it changes everything. Weakness becomes currency, and everybody wants a piece of it. It doesn't always start with violence either. Sometimes it's manipulation. Sometimes it's pressure to run errands, do favors, or give up commissary. Other times it's mental warfare, non-stop taunts, constant reminders of your lowest moment. All of it is dangerous. King Harris is now forced to walk a razor's edge, where one wrong move could turn humiliation into something far worse. The bravado that once inflated his image has become his biggest liability inside that environment. Fear doesn't just make you vulnerable, it defines your future, and the streets don't forget. Even if King walked free tomorrow, even if he went back to luxury cars, high-end studios, and designer chains, this story would still trail him like a shadow. In Atlanta culture, where credibility is sacred, And reputation is everything. Being labeled scared in jail is a scar that never fades. That stain doesn't just hit King. It chips away at the entire family name. It dents the image his father spent decades building. And it reshapes how the culture looks at every other celebrity kid trying to prove they were real. King isn't the first to chase a struggle he never had. He won't be the last. But his fall has been one of the most public and most avoidable we've seen in a long time. The saddest part is this didn't have to end like this. Authenticity doesn't come from pretending to be broken. It comes from knowing exactly who you are. And when you zoom out, this story becomes bigger than one family. It turns into a mirror reflecting a dangerous trend in modern culture. The glorification of struggle by people who never lived it. Kids born into wealth idolizing pain they never felt. Sons of kings pretending to be from the trenches. That's not street life. That's street cosplay. And in real life, pretending comes with consequences. The streets don't care about followers. They don't care about famous parents. They don't care about interviews or clout. When the doors close and the lights flicker, all that matters is heart. And for King Harris, that heart got tested in the harshest way possible. When fantasy collides with reality the way it did for King, the results are devastating. The illusion burns away, leaving nothing but uncomfortable truth. Even DJ Akemix, in one of his unfiltered moments, called this out with brutal honesty. He mocked King for flashing petty arrests like trophies, saying it was wild for someone born into privilege to act like the streets hardened him. And here's the part nobody expected. Those words weren't just commentary, they were prophecy. That obsession with being feared instead of understood pushed King straight into the nightmare that exposed him. Where does that leave the self-proclaimed Prince of Trap now? On one hand, this humiliation could be a turning point. He could face reality, admit the streets were never his lane, pivot toward something real, embrace education, opportunity, and the platform he was born into, because real strength isn't pretending to be tough. It's owning who you are. But let's be honest, does anyone really believe King will do that? History says otherwise. Every time he's embarrassed, checked, or criticized, his instinct has been the same. Double down. Yell louder. Posture harder. Keep insisting he is standing on business, even when everyone watching knows that business is broken. And that's what makes this story tragic. The more he fights for an image that's already shattered, the deeper he digs himself. The gang leader's revelation didn't just humiliate him, trapped him in a cycle. From this point forward, everything King does gets judged through one brutal question. Is he overcompensating? Every lyric, every post, every confrontation, every interview, all of it will be dissected. If he talks tough, they'll say he's forcing it. If he acts humble, they'll say he's scared. That jail story follows him everywhere. And here's the cruel irony for someone obsessed with respect. This is the worst prison of all. Not steel bars, but public perception. When your reputation is shattered, even freedom doesn't feel free. You're constantly fighting a story the world already believes. So the real question now is whether redemption is even possible. Can King Harris climb out of the hole he created? Or has the internet already decided his fate? Because once you're publicly exposed, mocked, and stripped of your image, the path back to credibility isn't just uphill, it's nearly vertical. For some people, redemption happens. We've seen public figures rebuild and reinvent themselves. But for King Harris, the climb is far steeper. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a rumor. This was the mirror image of the identity he spent years selling. King didn't just lose credibility, he lost his foundation. The persona built on toughness and fearlessness was torn apart in front of the world. In Atlanta, in hip-hop, and online, that kind of stain doesn't wash out with apologies or PR. Once the streets stop believing you, the cameras stop mattering. Clout fades, followers move on, and your name becomes a punchline whispered by the same crowd that once cheered. That's the real punishment. It's not jail time, not memes. But losing respect on both sides, one truth remains clear. The gang leader's words didn't just expose King Harris. They defined him, unless he rewrites his story. That definition follows him everywhere. He won't be remembered as the fearless Prince of Trap. He'll be remembered as the kid who stood on business, till the business stood on him. That's the final tragedy of this saga. A cautionary tale of how the hunger for validation can become the very downfall someone was trying to avoid.